All right, guys, so welcome to the channel, and I want to go over today in this video the Hurst Billet Plus short shifter. And this shifter here has something that all the other ones don't. So for a C6 Corvette, you have your options of T-Mod, TIC, MGW. Of course, you can stay stock. This Hurst short shifter, but the advantage of a short shifter is that it changes the geometry of the shifter. So it essentially, this section here below the pivot point is longer, and then the section above the pivot point that has your handle, your grip, or your knob is going to be shorter. So you have quicker reaction time shifting. Now, believe it or not, I actually like the stock shifter on the C6 ZR1. It is a great shifter. Some people think it's like too loosey-goosey and like it feels too loose. But I actually prefer it because along with the anti-venom mod, which is you add spacers, copper washers to the detent on the transmission to space out essentially the spring pressure, it changes the feeling of the shifter a little bit. So that can help. That's what I did. I did one washer. I was happy with the short shifter. Sorry, I was happy with the OEM factory shifter on the ZR1 after, taking the MGW out after a few years and, going back to stock. I like the stock one. But the only disadvantage of using stock is obviously it's not a short shifter. So this is why I have this. So I got a great deal on this. I got this for like $200. And the main difference now is this right here on this shifter. These two big set screws have a set of springs underneath them, and it allows you to adjust the side-to-side pressure. So I've already gone ahead and used the set of springs that gives me the stock-like feel. So the stock-like side-to-side pressure on the shifter. That's the main difference between this and all the other ones on the market right now. All the other ones are going to have a set pressure, a set like stiffness to this shift knob and a shift shaft, or whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be the main advantage of this Hurst Billet Plus. So I want to go ahead and install this on my car and see how it does. Like I said, I dialed this into the spring pressure of a stock shifter. You can set it to a firmer spring pressure where it's like it really kind of fights you when you want to go left and right on the shifter. It's not the front to back is left untouched, but it's more so the side to side that's affected here. So really quick, I want to show you the springs that come with it. So this is the other set of springs. This is the stiffer set of springs. So I already went ahead and installed the lighter springs in the unit, but you have to install the springs coaxial to each other. So just like that. So one inside the other. There's a smaller spring and a larger spring. So they fit right inside each other. So I've already done that. Like I said, the MGW, it felt too notchy for me. It felt like I had to put too much effort into shifting, as silly as it sounds. But the stock shifter was nice and loosey-goosey, went right into gear, no problem, especially with that one trick with the anti-venom mod, that one spacer, one washer trick. But I want to see how this thing does with the same exact anti-venom mod, one washer, and see how it feels. So I can actually have a short shifter back in the car, which is, an advantage. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me go and start taking the car apart and installing the Hurst. I'm not going to go over every single step in the process here. There's other videos covering that. But I will go ahead and Loctite these screws once I get the height dialed in. So these simply screw in and screw out. So you're going to have to dial it into whatever pressure you want and then count the threads and then go ahead and apply, take the set screw out, apply Loctite, and then screw it back on to that same exact thread depth. That way you'll maintain that spring pressure that you want. But it is very important to apply some Loctite to this so this doesn't start flopping around. So that's one thing I want to mention before I get started. All right, so let's go ahead now to the car. Let me go ahead and install this guy, and I'll let you know what my thoughts are. All right, so here are the shifters side by side, the OEM, which is right here, and the Hurst Billet Plus. And I would just want to show you really quick the comparison in geometry. So you're going to have a longer bottom end on the short shifter than the stock. It's just a touch longer. It's maybe about 100 thousandths longer overall. And then the top end is going to be shorter, obviously, because you want a short throw. The stock one is longer. So that's what it looks like. I have the bushing here. This is the factory bushing. I'm going to go ahead and replace this and put it on the Hurst, right on the ball end here. And something you're going to want to consider is that on the stock one, you have this little post here that you can slide down into place onto the shaft, the shift shaft that goes to the transmission. Now that's to find your neutral spot. So you use this right here to do that. So you can do the same thing with this if you're unsure of the position you're in with your shifter on your transmission. So go ahead and use this to locate neutral. That way you can go install this and have no issues. But I wanted to show you just a quick comparison, like, you know, side by side what it looks like. So let me go ahead now and install the Hurst, and I'll continue on and let you know my thoughts. All right, guys, so let me give you a little recap of what I've done here. I went ahead and installed the shifter, as you can see, and everything looks good. So I want to go over the sequence of doing this because the alignment of this shifter is kind of something that I had a hard time figuring out at the very beginning when I did the MGW, and now I fully understand it, so I want to kind of convey that to you guys. There is a pin here in the front, so the OEM shifter has a locating pin for neutral. So if you can see where I'm pointing at, you want to first go ahead and loosen up your 3 T40 Torx screws that hold down the clamp, and then there's 2 that hold down the lower housing. Just loosen those up, and you can just kind of back off the clamp one down here. So loosen that up so they're all loose. Then go ahead and find neutral and insert the pin in the front hole. There's a hole in the shaft, and then there's a hole in this like front cover, the housing. Align those up. That way the shifter is right in the middle position and it's locked. Now, you have to do this because you want this all kind of centered and aligned properly. So once you go ahead and do that, then you can go ahead and install your shifter and tighten down all these 4 bolts. The socket head bolts on top of the shifter, okay? So, pin still installed. Then the next thing you want to tighten down is the T40 clamp here on the movable linkage down here on the shaft that actually shifts the transmission. So that's going to center the clamp or the bolt in the slot that's cut in the shaft. So you want to have this centered in neutral, you know, locked down. Then you want to center the shaft, the movable shaft, and then the very last thing is to like locate this here, which is the lower housing. And then once you do that and get it in its like free state there, where it's not like bound up or anything, then you can go ahead and tighten down the remaining 2 T40 Torx screws, one in the front here and one right here. So if you do it in that sequence, you're going to fully align the shifter. This is something I kind of didn't figure out till recently, and it's kind of important. So that way you don't have issues going into gear and stuff like that. But once you do that, you can go ahead and remove this pin in the front. So if you do it right, this pin, this L-shaped pin right here, this is from the OEM shifter. This should go in and out very easily into that alignment hole in the front here. If it does not, and you have to work this thing back and forth a lot, that means you have a misalignment. So this should go right back in with kind of ease and should not give you a hard time. If it does, like I said, it's not aligned. So as you can see, the shifter shifts really nice. I really like it, actually. The throw on it is super short. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, neutral. And the tension on it's pretty good. So the tension, like I said, is adjusted by these screws here. I got it so I have the lesser pressure springs in there, and then I back this off, and then I Loctited it into place. Okay? And same thing with these oval travel screws. I actually ran into a problem because the set screws that came with this, I went to adjust one, and it was buried into this nut. And when I went to adjust it, I barely, tightened it, and it broke the head off the actual set screw. So I had to improvise, and I'm using these larger bolts that are much more robust, and these should not break at all. Okay, so I went ahead and adjusted that so when it's in gear, okay, so this one back here, so fourth, you want it to kiss the back of this just enough so it puts a tiny bit of pressure, just kissing it. That way you feel a positive stop and you don't over travel, because you can actually, there's a perceived amount of over travel. You can throw this forward and back, and believe it or not, it's equivalent to like 1/8 of an inch. So if you put this stop in place, front and back, because there's one in the front here too, that will keep the throw at a minimum. So you're going to be throwing the shifter short as possible, because if you don't do that, then you're going to have a little bit of over travel, but that's not a big deal. The ZR1 transmission actually has like built-in stops in the transmission, but this helps you just refine it even further. So I went ahead and did that. It's all dialed in. Now it's a matter of just putting everything back together and trying it out and see how I like it. So far, I like it, and everything's good. I did have to, when I installed this aftermarket shifter, I had to trim off the shaft on the very top of this, like about 1/4 of an inch. For whatever reason, this aftermarket shifter, which I'm pretty sure is based on a stock one, it's a carbon fiber one if you can't see that, but I had to trim it because I couldn't align the fastener with it. So that's one little thing that I had to do. I had to cut that down with a hacksaw, but that's not really a big deal. And like I said, the set screws, be really careful because those heads are really fragile and like thin. And I broke one off barely tightening it. So I can't really fault Hurst because this is secondhand. So I'm not going to really bust them up on that. But that's the shifter, guys. I'm going to go ahead now and button this thing up, dress it up, put everything back together, and then give you my final thoughts. All right, guys, so I'm back. Everything's back together, and the shifter is all buttoned up, and I'm really happy with the overall install of this, minus the minor hiccup with the set screw breaking, and I had to trim off the top of the actual shaft to fit my knob, but it's all good to go. Feels great. So now I'm just going to give this a try now for the next month or so, for the rest of the fall, and see how I like it. And I'll give you guys updates on later videos throughout the winter going forward. I'm most likely going to have other Corvette videos, so I'll let you know what I think of this. And maybe I'll do a recap video in the future. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions or comments, please place them right down below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and do so. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.